Ilara Vance ran through the ruins of the settlement, her boots crunching over broken metal and scorched earth. Smoke rose in thick, black clouds, choking her lungs, but she forced herself to keep moving. Around her, the remnants of her home flickered and hissed. Ships had crashed, and fire had spread across the buildings. The air was heavy with fear and ash. Somewhere nearby, the predator waited. She had seen it first from the edge of the debris, a massive Carvax dragon, taller than any building she had ever seen. Its scales glimmered darkly under the firelight, like molten metal. Its nostrils flared with smoke, and its eyes were sharp and cruel. It sniffed the air, looking for any movement, any sound. Ilara knew she should hide. Everyone in the settlement had been told stories of these creatures, of how they could crush humans with one swipe or shred ships with their claws. They were the apex predators of this world. Most humans who saw a Carvax did not live to tell the tale. But Ilara did not run. Not yet. She could see something strange, something that made her heart pound for a different reason. The dragon was in pain. Its head jerked violently as it thrashed near the wreckage of a ship. Smoke and sparks drifted around its horns. She could see a long, metallic thorn stuck deep inside its right nostril. Every movement made the creature growl and roar, shaking debris from the surrounding ruins. Blood, dark and thick, leaked from the nostril. Even from a distance, Ilara could see the agony in its massive body. Most humans would have stayed hidden. Most would have watched and hoped the dragon would die or leave. But something inside her stirred. It was not bravery, not exactly. It was something else. Curiosity. Empathy. The faint hope that maybe, just maybe, this creature could be saved. And if it could, perhaps it would not kill the few survivors left, including her. She crept closer, her small frame moving silently over metal sheets and fallen beams. Her eyes were locked on the thorn, glinting in the firelight. She could hear the dragon's low, rumbling growl, warning her to stay away. Each step she took made the creature's head twitch violently, and sparks flew from the broken machinery it had slammed against. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had never been this close to a Carvax before. Most humans had only seen them in stories or through the safety of observation drones. And yet here she was, within reach of something that could crush her without effort. Her fingers itched to touch the thorn, to pull it free. The dragon's pain was clear, its suffering almost human in its intensity. Ilara's mind raced. One wrong move, one sudden sound, and she would be shredded in an instant. She glanced around. No one else was near. Everyone had hidden or fled. She was alone. And yet, a strange calm settled over her. Her hands shook, but her mind was clear. The dragon's breathing was harsh and jagged, the roar of smoke and fire making her ears ring. She whispered to herself, a quiet mantra, "It's just pain. It's just pain." Slowly, she extended her hand. Her fingers brushed against the thorn. It was cold, hard, and rough. The dragon growled louder, and flames flickered from its mouth, a warning that it was ready to strike. But Ilara held still. She felt the creature tremble under her touch, and for a moment, she thought she saw something almost human in its eyes, fear, confusion, and hurt. She gritted her teeth and pulled gently. The thorn did not move at first. She adjusted her grip, careful not to push it further. She whispered softly, "It's okay. I won't hurt you." A sudden jerk made her stumble backward, and the dragon roared, smoke curling from its nostrils. The thorn came loose. Blood splattered, and the dragon shivered violently. Ilara pressed a hand to its snout, trying to calm it. She could feel the heat of its breath, the sharp scent of smoke and metal, and the raw power vibrating beneath her palm. For a heartbeat, the dragon stared at her, and then, surprisingly, it lowered its massive head. Its eyes, glowing in the firelight, focused on her. It did not attack. It did not roar. It simply stood, still, as if trying to understand what had just happened. Ilara's chest heaved with relief and fear. She had done it. She had touched a predator the galaxy said no human could approach, and it had allowed her to live. The dragon shifted slightly, nudging her gently with its head. Sparks flew from the wreckage as it moved, but it did not harm her. It was a strange, cautious truce. Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew the dragon was still dangerous, more than capable of killing her in an instant. But for now, it seemed to recognize something in her, a spark of bravery, or perhaps mercy. Around them, the smoke thickened, hiding the ruins of the settlement. Ilara's ears caught the faint crackle of other survivors trying to escape, of ships moving in the distance. And yet, she did not move. Her eyes remained on the dragon. For the first time, She realized that power did not always belong to those with size or claws. Sometimes, it belonged to those who had courage when fear screamed louder. The Carvex, predator of legends, was wounded and dangerous. And yet, in that instant, it became something else. Something closer to an ally, or at least, something that had chosen to trust a human, against every instinct it had. Ilara swallowed hard and stepped back slowly, keeping her eyes on the dragon. It did not follow her. It simply watched. The smoke curled around them, flames casting long shadows across the ruins, and for the first time in the settlement, a human did not run. A human stood, facing a monster, and the monster had chosen not to strike. Ilara felt a small, strange hope bloom in her chest. Perhaps this was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. The predator's growl softened into a low rumble, almost a purr, and Ilara realized that fear and pain could be bridged by something as simple as understanding. Her hands still tingled from the heat of its scales, but she knew, deep inside, that the dragon would remember her. And maybe, just maybe, it would become more than a predator, it could become her shield. Ilara stood frozen for a moment, her hands still trembling from the heat of the Carvex's scales. Around them, the ruins of the settlement smoldered, and the distant sounds of collapsing metal echoed in the smoky air. The predator had lowered its massive head, nostrils flaring gently, watching her with cautious eyes. Every instinct in her body screamed to run, to hide, to survive. But she did not. Something told her this was a moment that could change everything. From the shadows, she could see other survivors trying to move through the wreckage, picking their way carefully over burned beams and broken walls. They were small and frightened, clinging to whatever hope they could find. And yet, none of them dared approach the dragon. They knew the stories. They knew the danger. One wrong step and the predator could end their lives in a heartbeat. Ilara took a deep breath, forcing her shaking hands to steady. She knelt on the scorched ground and looked up at the Carvex. Its eyes were sharp, glimmering with intelligence, but they also held a cautious curiosity. She could see the pain lingering in its body, the tension in its claws and wings. It had been hurt, and it had allowed her to help. That alone made her chest tighten. The galaxy had taught humans to fear dragons. But Ilara had learned that dragons were not only fear, they were also creatures that could feel pain, need help, and even trust, if one dared to step closer. Slowly, she reached into her satchel and pulled out a strip of cloth. It was small, dirty, and torn from the uniform she had worn as she scavenged through the settlement, but it would serve. She wrapped it gently around the spot where the thorn had been, trying to stop the bleeding. The Carvex flinched as she moved, but she spoke softly, in a low voice, words that sounded like comfort more than command. "It's okay," she said. "I won't hurt you. I just want to help." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, as if sensing her intentions, the dragon exhaled a slow, rumbling breath. Smoke drifted around its nostrils, but the tension in its body eased slightly. Ilara continued, brushing small embers from its scales and smoothing the torn cloth over the wound. She could feel the warmth of the creature's body, the vibrations of its deep growls under her hands, but she did not flinch. She had never been this close to anything so powerful. She had never faced fear like this and kept moving forward. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the smoke. A scavenger ship, small but heavily armed, descended near the edge of the ruins. Lights swept across the wreckage, and shadows moved quickly. They were after survivors, after her. Ilara froze, but the Carvex shifted immediately. Its wings spread slightly, creating a shadow that covered her and the nearest escape route. Its claws dug into the ground as if it had grown taller in an instant. The predator, once feared as a mindless hunter, now acted as a guardian. Ilara's heart pounded. She had not asked for this. She had only wanted to pull a thorn from a beast's nose, nothing more. And yet, here it was, standing between her and death. She took a cautious step back, holding up her hands in a gesture of peace, afraid any sudden movement might make the dragon snap. But the Carvex stayed still, growling low, its eyes tracking the approaching scavengers. The ship landed with a screech of metal against stone, and figures emerged, armed with blasters and tools for capturing creatures. They had not expected the dragon to move so quickly, to protect a human. They hesitated for a moment, scanning the smoke-filled ruins. Ilara noticed one of them pointing a weapon directly at her, ready to fire. Her fingers itched for her own small blaster, but she held still. The predator's growl rose in volume, low and terrifying. Sparks flew from the tips of its horns as it lowered its head, positioning its massive body between her and the intruders. The scavengers shouted commands, trying to intimidate the dragon. One of them fired a warning shot, but the Carvex moved with incredible speed, blocking the path of the blaster with its massive forearm. The impact rattled the ground, and debris sprayed around them. Ilara's eyes widened. She had never seen a dragon act like this, not to attack, but to shield. It was as if the predator had chosen her, recognized something in her courage and calm, and now refused to let anything harm her. Ilara swallowed hard. Her mind raced. She could not fight like the dragon. She could not hope to match its strength. But she could use her wits. She noticed the shadows, the smoke, the uneven ground, and she whispered quietly to herself, "Just enough time, just enough time." Using small rocks and broken metal, she created distractions, tossing them to shift the scavenger's attention. Each small noise made the dragon tense, ready to move, but it trusted her. It waited. Together, human and dragon acted in silent coordination, instinctively understanding each other's limits and strengths. The scavengers were confused, frustrated by the unpredictable movement of the dragon. Its sheer size and presence blocked them from reaching Ilara. Sparks flew, rocks tumbled, and the predator's growls echoed through the ruined settlement. Ilara felt a strange mix of fear and awe. She had not fought a battle with weapons or strategy. She had acted with bravery small but precise, and it had changed the outcome. Finally, the scavengers retreated, realizing the risk was too great. Their ship roared as it lifted from the wreckage, and the shadow of the Carvex followed them, long and terrifying in the firelight. Ilara dropped to her knees, trembling, exhausted from fear and relief. The dragon lowered its massive head, resting it near her shoulder. Its nostrils flared slowly, and for a moment, she felt the warmth of its breath as a strange comfort. Ilara realized something important. Courage did not always mean fighting. Sometimes, it meant standing still when the world screamed to run. Sometimes, it meant helping a creature far stronger than yourself, trusting that understanding and care could outweigh fear. The Carvex had not only survived its injury, it had become her shield. Her heart swelled with a small, fierce pride. The galaxy had always said humans were weak, fragile, easy to crush. But in that ruined settlement, among smoke and fire, a human had acted with bravery, and a predator had chosen to protect her. She touched its scales lightly, whispering, "We'll survive this, together." The dragon's eyes glimmered, not with hunger, not with rage, but with a quiet recognition. In that moment, the smallest act of bravery had changed everything. And Ilara knew, deep inside, that nothing would ever be the same again. Ilara woke before dawn, the cold air biting her face as she crouched near the edge of the smoldering settlement. Beside her, the Carvex, Threxal, as she had silently named him, stirred, shifting his massive body with careful, almost gentle movements. Despite his size, he moved quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon with intelligence that made her heart race. The smoke had cleared enough to reveal the distant lights of ships approaching. She knew immediately that they were not scavengers this time. They were bigger, organized, and dangerous in ways humans could hardly imagine. Word of the dragon and the human who had survived together had spread faster than she expected. Scouts from the galactic authorities, researchers, and military units had all been alerted. Humans had never been known to survive encounters with a Carvex, much less bond with one. The stories of a human pulling a thorn from a dragon's nostril and living had reached ears that demanded attention, curiosity, or control. Ships hummed in the sky, scanning, landing, and sending out drones that mapped every movement. Ilara felt a surge of fear. They would try to take Threxal, to dissect, study, or use him. She could see it in the sharp outlines of their ships, the way their small landing crafts moved with precision across the blackened fields. She glanced at the dragon. He was calm, but his muscles coiled, ready for action. They trusted each other now, not by force, but by choice. And that trust would be tested. When the first scouts landed, metallic feet crushing the scorched earth, Ilara stepped forward, raising her hands. "Stay back," she shouted. Her voice trembled, but the Carvex made a deep, low rumble in agreement, moving closer to her as if to shield her. The humans and aliens in the scouting party froze, surprised by the size and power of the dragon. Weapons were raised, but even trained soldiers hesitated to attack. Threxal's presence alone was enough to make them reconsider. One of the commanders, a tall figure in reflective armor, stepped forward. "Step aside, human," he said, voice cold. "That creature is a specimen of interest to the Galactic Council. You will not interfere." Ilara's stomach tightened. "He's not a specimen," she yelled. He's protecting me. You don't understand." The commander's eyes narrowed. "All life forms have utility. You are fortunate it has not decided to act on instinct. Step aside, or we will use force. Ilara swallowed, knowing that words alone might not save them. But Threxal moved forward before she could react, his massive frame creating a shadow that engulfed her and a portion of the landing site. Sparks from his horns glinted in the early morning sun as he tilted his head toward the intruders. The soldiers froze again, realizing that the dragon's intelligence was not instinct alone. He understood her, and he understood their intent. Without warning, one of the scouts fired a warning shot. The energy beam sliced through the air, missing Ilara by inches but striking a nearby beam, sending sparks flying. Threxal growled, a sound that rumbled through the ground, and the soldiers stepped back. It was no longer a question of force, they were dealing with a creature that chose protection over predation. The Carvex blocked their path, standing like a living wall. Ilara's heart pounded. She knew that the galaxy would never see a dragon like this as anything other than a weapon or curiosity. But she also knew something important: Threxal would not allow them to take him while she was near. He had learned trust, and he had learned to act not on instinct alone, but in defense of someone smaller and weaker than himself. The commander barked orders, and more ships began to land, their engines shaking the ground beneath them. Scientists rushed out with scanning devices and containment tools. They tried to lure Threxal with food and restraints, but the dragon ignored them, keeping his focus on Ilara. Every movement was careful, controlled, and protective. It was clear to anyone watching that he was not just a predator, he had made a choice. Ilara realized then how small acts could ripple far beyond what one could imagine. Pulling a thorn from Threxal's nostril had changed everything. It had earned her the loyalty of a creature the galaxy had feared for centuries. And now, everyone was watching. Drones hovered, beams of light sweeping across the ruins, trying to measure and capture. Soldiers whispered in fear as the dragon shifted, warning them not to step closer. One of the scientists, ignoring the warnings, approached with a scanner in hand. "We need to document him," she shouted. "We can't risk losing this is unprecedented." Threxal's eyes narrowed. His nostrils flared, and his massive wings flexed slightly. A deep rumble vibrated through the ground. Ilara stepped forward, holding up her hands. "Stop. Don't come closer," she shouted. "He trusts me. You can't force this. You'll only make him fight." For a tense moment, the air was thick with fear. Then, slowly, the commander waved a hand. "Stand down. For now," he said. He realized the danger, the unpredictability of a Carvex that refused to obey anything but its chosen human. The soldiers hesitated, and the drones hovered in neutral positions. The galaxy had taken notice. It had always believed humans were fragile, unimportant in the grand design of dragons and predators. But here, on this burned settlement, a human had not only survived, she had gained the respect of a creature that could have destroyed her in seconds. Ilara looked at Threxal. His eyes met hers, glowing faintly in the rising sunlight. There was a connection now, unspoken but undeniable. The galaxy may come with weapons, scanners, and curiosity, but he would protect her. And she would stand with him. Around them, the wind carried ash and sparks, swirling across the ruins. Ships hummed, engines shaking the ground, and drones circled like hovering eyes. Every observer, human or alien, could see what had happened. A predator had been saved, a human had survived, and a bond had formed that no weapon could easily break. Ilara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of eyes on her and the heat of the dragon beside her. She realized that this moment was more than survival. It was a message the galaxy had never understood: courage and care could change the balance of power. Threxal had chosen her. And in doing so, he had challenged centuries of fear and expectation. The soldiers began to retreat slowly, and the drones hovered in place, recording every detail. Word would spread quickly. Everyone would know that a human and a Carvex had faced the galaxy together. And in that story, no one would be able to call humans weak ever again. Ilara felt a strange mixture of pride and fear. The galaxy was watching, yes, but it was watching a human who had dared to act when all others fled. She reached out and touched Threxal's massive leg, whispering, "We'll show them, together." The dragon's low rumble responded like an echo of her promise. Together, human and predator would face whatever the galaxy sent next. And the world would never forget that they had survived, against expectation, against fear, and against the laws the galaxy thought could not be broken. The sun had risen higher, burning through the smoke that still lingered over the ruins of the settlement. Ilara stood near Threxal, her hand brushing against his rough, dark scales. The dragon was calm now, but the air around them was tense. The galaxy had taken notice of their bond, and the first official envoys had arrived. Ships hovered overhead, casting shadows across the scorched earth, while soldiers and scientists moved with careful precision, trying to observe, measure, and, if possible, take control. Ilara's stomach twisted with fear. She knew what was coming. Humans had never been able to command the attention of dragons in this way. To the galaxy, dragons were weapons, creatures of power and danger. But Threxal was not like the others. He had chosen her. And the galaxy was about to test that choice. A transport ship landed with a metallic screech, shaking the ground beneath them. Soldiers poured out, some with containment devices, others with blasters aimed cautiously. Scientists with scanning tools followed, whispering excitedly about documenting the unprecedented bond. Ilara took a step forward, raising her hands in warning. "Stay back. Don't come closer." The commander, a sharp-eyed alien with metallic armor, waved them on. "Approach. We are here to bring the creature under control. You will not interfere, human." Ilara's heart pounded. She knew Threxal would not go quietly. She had seen the way he moved, the way he thought, the way he judged threats. And she also knew she could not run, not now, not ever. She swallowed hard and whispered to the dragon, "Protect me. Please." Threxal rumbled low in response, shifting his massive weight between her and the approaching soldiers. Sparks flew from the scorched earth as his claws dug in. His nostrils flared, smoke curling from them, and his wings flexed slightly. Every movement was deliberate, a warning to anyone who dared step closer. The soldiers froze, realizing they were dealing with more than a wild predator. They were facing a creature that had made a choice. One of the soldiers fired a warning shot, and the beam struck the ground inches from Ilara. Threxal growled, a deep, vibrating sound that shook the ground and rattled the ruins. He stepped forward, positioning his massive body so that the soldiers could not advance without risking their lives. Ilara watched, her pulse racing, as the dragon became a living shield. She had never imagined that pulling a thorn from a dragon's nostril could lead to this moment, where a predator of legend would stand between her and the full might of the galaxy. The commander raised his voice. "Stand down. This human cannot control him. He is a danger to all life here." Threxal responded with a roar that echoed across the plains, a sound so powerful it made soldiers stumble backward. Sparks leapt from the wreckage around him, and the air vibrated with the force of his presence. Ilara could feel the heat of his scales through her hands and the trembling of the ground beneath his claws. She realized then that the galaxy had always underestimated humans, not because of strength, but because they did not understand courage. And courage was what she and Threxal shared in that moment. The scientists tried to move closer with containment devices, but Threxal shifted his head, wings, and claws in perfect coordination, keeping them at bay. He was not attacking, not killing, but protecting. Ilara's mind raced. She needed to show the galaxy that humans were more than fragile bodies. They were quick-thinking, brave, and capable of inspiring loyalty in creatures even more powerful than themselves. Using small debris, she created distractions. She threw pieces of metal, sending sparks and noise toward the edges of the landing zone, guiding the soldiers' attention while Threxal moved slightly to block the most dangerous approaches. Her hands were shaking, but her movements were deliberate. She realized that this was more than survival, it was strategy. Humans had always been underestimated, but here, in the shadow of fire and smoke, she was proving their worth. The soldiers and scientists were cautious now, whispering commands and warnings, trying not to provoke the dragon. They could see the bond, the careful trust between human and predator, and they hesitated. The galaxy had never witnessed anything like this. A predator, feared across countless worlds, had chosen to shield a human. And the human, small and seemingly fragile, was guiding the dragon without fear. Suddenly, one of the soldiers aimed a blaster at Ilara. Threxal's eyes narrowed, and in a blur of motion, his massive wings swept forward, knocking the weapon aside before it could fire. Sparks flew, and the soldier stumbled back, falling to the ground. The other soldiers froze, staring in shock. Threxal did not roar or attack further. He simply stood, massive and unyielding, a living wall that no weapon could penetrate. Ilara knelt slightly, placing a hand on his forearm. "Thank you," she whispered. The dragon's rumble vibrated through the ground in acknowledgement. She realized that she had not just saved herself, she had shown the galaxy that a human could inspire loyalty, courage, and protection in a creature they had feared for centuries. The commander called for a retreat. The soldiers stepped back, wary of provoking the dragon further. The scientists held their scanners but did not advance. Word would spread quickly, the galaxy had underestimated humans. The creatures they thought were untouchable had chosen a human, and the human had survived. And more than survived, she had commanded respect, trust, and protection. Ilara's chest heaved with relief, but she did not lower her hands. She knew the threat was not gone, this was only the beginning. Threxal shifted slightly, keeping his massive head between her and the retreating fleet. He was hurt, but he had not faltered. He had become her shield, and nothing could break it. The wind carried smoke and sparks across the ruins. Ilara looked at Threxal, feeling the weight of his presence, the warmth of his scales, and the quiet strength of his protection. She realized that the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Their strength was not in weapons or technology alone, it was in courage, in empathy, and in the small acts of bravery that could change the course of worlds. Ilara touched his massive leg lightly. "We'll survive this," she whispered. Threxal's low rumble responded like a promise. Together, human and dragon had become something the galaxy had never anticipated, a shield no one could break, a bond that would force even the most powerful forces to reconsider what humans could do. And as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the ruins, the galaxy realized that it had misjudged humanity. The humans who had once been seen as fragile and weak were capable of inspiring loyalty in monsters, commanding attention without weapons, and standing unafraid when the world demanded surrender. In the ruins of the settlement, a small human girl and a massive dragon predator had shown that courage, trust, and understanding could not be measured by size or strength, and that was a lesson no one would forget. Ilara sat on a pile of scorched metal, her fingers brushing against the rough scales of Threxal, who had lowered his massive head beside her. The smoke had cleared from the settlement, and the morning sun shone weakly over the ruins. The galaxy had come and gone, leaving behind whispers and eyes that would never forget what they had seen. Ships had left, carrying soldiers, scientists, and diplomats who could only report what had already shocked them. A human had survived, and a predator of legend had chosen to protect her. 4 days afterward, Threxal stayed close to Ilara, moving through the settlement and surrounding fields as if he were guarding her from invisible threats. Other humans returned slowly, curious and wary, but none dared approach the dragon. They had seen how he had acted against the galaxy's forces, how he had blocked weapons, and how he had trusted only one small, fragile human. Whispers began to spread that humans were more than their size and strength. They were clever, brave, and capable of winning loyalty in ways no technology or weapon could match. Ilara walked beside Threxal, her hand resting lightly on his scales. She thought about the thorn she had pulled, how a simple act of care had sparked all of this. One small moment, one act of bravery, had changed the way the galaxy would look at humans forever. She had never imagined that she could influence a creature so powerful, or that she could survive when everything told her to flee. And yet, here she was, and here was Threxal, alive, healthy, and aware. The first dragon scouts arrived weeks later, flying low over the ruins. They were massive, terrifying, and cautious. These dragons had heard of Threxal's choice, and they were curious. They circled, their eyes sharp, nostrils flaring as they observed him and Ilara. But they did not attack. They did not roar. They simply watched. Threxal remained calm, standing between Ilara and the newcomers, and in his stance was a quiet message: do not underestimate this human. Ilara realized then that the dragons remembered. They remembered the rare creatures who had shown courage when others would have fled. They remembered humans who acted with empathy, not for power, but because it was the right thing to do. Even predators, feared across countless worlds, recognized the difference between instinct and choice. Threxal had taught them that humans were unpredictable, but not in weakness. They were unpredictable in strength, in bravery, in the courage to act when all hope seemed lost. As more dragons observed, the humans began to rebuild their settlement. Machines hummed, structures rose from the ashes, and small fires were kept under control. Threxal followed Ilara everywhere, protecting her with his massive presence. The galaxy continued to watch from a distance, but slowly, the fear of humans began to change into respect. They had thought dragons were beyond human understanding, impossible to influence. Now they saw that humans could inspire even the most feared predators to protect instead of destroy. Ilara stood on a ridge one evening, looking over the settlement. Threxal shifted beside her, massive wings folding against his back. A younger dragon approached cautiously, circling and sniffing the air. Ilara held out her hand slowly. The dragon stopped, hesitant. Threxal rumbled low, as if introducing her, and the younger dragon lowered its head, recognizing the human's courage. Ilara smiled. She understood now that humans did not need strength to lead, they needed action, trust, and heart. Word spread among dragons quickly. They began to watch humans more closely, observing their actions, learning from their courage, and remembering the choices of those like Elara who had faced fear without flinching. Predators that once hunted without thought now hesitated, aware that humans could be allies, protectors, or something unexpected. It was not fear that guided them anymore, it was memory, and memory of the rare humans who had acted with bravery. One night, as the stars shone above, Elara and Threxal rested near a lake that reflected the sky. The dragon's eyes glowed softly in the moonlight, and Elara reached out, feeling the warmth of his scales. "You remember," she whispered. "You remember what we did together. You remember humans can be more than they seem." Threxal's low rumble answered, a sound that vibrated deep in her chest. She knew it was true. They remembered. The galaxy, too, remembered. Stories spread of a human girl who had pulled a thorn from a dragon's nostril, who had survived against odds that no one expected, and who had inspired a predator to protect her. Humans were no longer seen as fragile, powerless beings. They were clever, brave, and capable of changing even the instincts of the fiercest creatures. And in that change, they had written a new chapter in the history of the galaxy. Elara walked among the ruins, Threxal moving silently beside her. Other humans joined slowly, inspired by her bravery and the bond she had formed. Children stared in awe at the dragon, and for the first time, they saw that humans could stand alongside creatures far stronger than themselves. Threxal allowed the humans to approach, but always kept his attention on Elara. His loyalty had been earned, and the galaxy watched, remembering that the smallest acts of courage could have the largest consequences. Years later, when Elara's story was told across planets, it was never just about survival. It was about trust, bravery, and the rare moment when a human had changed a predator's mind. Dragons remembered her not as prey, not as a threat, but as a being capable of courage and understanding. And humans remembered that day, too, the day one girl's act of bravery became a shield strong enough to challenge the galaxy itself. Elara stood once more at the edge of the settlement, watching the horizon. Threxal rumbled softly beside her, and other dragons circled in the distance, curious but calm. The galaxy had learned something it could not unlearn: humans were not weak. Humans were brave, unpredictable, and capable of inspiring even the fiercest predators to remember mercy, trust, and courage. And in that moment, Elara understood the truth the dragons had learned. Memory of humans would last long after battles, fires, and even civilizations had faded. They remembered courage. They remembered bravery. And they remembered her.